To you, what is purpose of life?
What comes to mind is connection. This silence is not me saying I never have fear, because for sure, stepping into any show as a newcomer, joining a family, it's really trepidatious.
Where does your creativity, your own creativity come in? And then there's that boundary of making sure that it aligns with the show needs and the character needs.
That's a great question.
Also factoring in that you used to be an AD, because AD is sort of doing. So how do you find that gap between used to being an AD and then, trying not to overstep?
I mean, I think I probably overstep at times, and that's just like a default that happens when you're stressed.
If there's a place in the world that you want to travel to the most?
Galapagos Islands. I feel like in America now, and Canada a little bit, we're trying to get back to, there's this like exclusivity, like
club.
But it's really distilled in the English culture.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Kingdom of Dreams podcast, The Making of Stories. I'm your host, Joe Admir. Today, my guest is director Anya Adams, who was behind the episodes 7 and 8 of Netflix series Bridgerton Season 4. What a great conversation it was. What a great guest she was to have on this show. We talked about blocking. We talked about working with actors. We talked about life. We talked about class. We talked about so many exciting things. So without further ado, here's my conversation with director Anya Adams. Enjoy. To talk to me about a little bit of your career, just very briefly. I went through your IMDb, and sometimes that information is not 100% accurate. You had done a lot of different television series in the past and in the last 7, 8, 10 years, and this was your first Bridgerton sort of taking on. Talk to me how you got into this industry, what sort of inspired you, the catalyst behind it.
Well, I started in live entertainment. I used to be a part of a group called Up With People. So I traveled around the world and did live entertainment. And as I was kind of winding down in that career, I was thinking, how can I get into television? And I found this program called the Directors Guild of America Trainee Program. So I jumped onto that. It's a very rigorous application process, but I got in. And so that process trains you to be an assistant director. So I started in this industry as an assistant director, and kind of worked my way through a bunch of different shows, ending on a show called CSI Miami that used to be like, the big hit back in the day. And so I kind of made my jump from a trainee to an AD on CSI Miami and worked there for a bit. Worked my way up to first AD basically on that show, and then started looking for other opportunities, also kind of leaning on the fact that I like to laugh. I'm a big comedy fan, so trying to kind of worm my way into that world. And so I was able to do that and worked on a bunch of shows you can see on my IMDb. But the last show, or the catalyst show for me moving into directing, was a TV show called The Mindy Project. I worked on that show as an AD and really was thinking about what's my next move. And the trajectory for an AD is like, you can be a production manager, or you can, go into the creative. The creative is a little bit more difficult. I chose the more difficult route. So I actually asked Mindy, I tell this story a lot. I said to her, like, hey, because I'd seen her giving other people opportunities. So I had asked her, I was like, look, I want to direct, would you give me a chance? And she said, absolutely. What have you done? And I was like, yeah, I haven't done anything, so I should probably do that. So in the process of trying to figure out what to do, I actually jumped shows and moved on to Blackish. And so when I got on Blackish, I did a short film with Marseille Martin, called Lemonade Mafia. And that and my conversations with producers, Kenya Barris, really moved me into a space where Kenya gave me an episode. So I directed, my first episode of television was Blackish. And from there, I made the jump into a bunch of comedy directing. I worked with a producer named Melvin Marr, who ran Speechless and Fresh Off the Boat. And so I got opportunities to direct on those shows. And from there, really what I've tried to do is build my career into something where people look at me as a director of a good director, not necessarily a director of comedy or a director of drama, because you can get really pigeonholed in this industry.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Even not in genre, but even as a particular job, like once you start doing like let's say editing, and then if you want to become a director, it becomes very, very hard to make that
Yes.
transition unless you have your own project, right?
Yeah. Or you have people that see you, want to give you the opportunity, which is what happened for me on Blackish. If Kenya hadn't have, said yes, let's give Anya a chance, it would have been really difficult. I mean, I would have had to keep making my own, projects, which people do. But it's really nice to be able to break in with a family, because that's what happened with me. I was really supported by the crew as I stepped into that role and the cast.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So fast forward, I would imagine maybe early last year or 2 years ago, you get a call to be on Bridgerton,
Yeah.
a series, a series that, by the end of season two, I think, even season one had become pretty, pretty big. And, there was a big sort of fans waiting for season three and four to come out. So you get this call, and you had never done Bridgerton before. It's a big Netflix series. And on top of that, episodes seven and eight, which are kind of like a
Yeah.
finale. Talk to me through that, how that went.
I mean, I was super honored to even be considered and then to be given the finale block of a much anticipated season was really exciting to me. And, um, you know, it's a big deal to do this show because it also shoots in London, which is amazing. I think it's really fun. Like I'm shooting in New York right now, and you tell people I'm shooting in New York, and everyone thinks if they don't live there that it's a vacation. You're going on vacation, but you're really going to work. So um, that was a little daunting, because I was in London from February until June, beginning of June. So you uproot your life for a major amount of time. You're not around your friends and family. You have your good days and your bad days, but you're kind of in another space. So that was really a daunting thing, like thinking about, what is that going to be like? What's great about Bridgerton is you step into a family that's super welcoming. They've been there from the beginning. Everyone's so rallied around the characters and the storytelling in the show that, newcomers are welcomed and, really helped to fit in. And so I really felt, I felt really comfortable and happy when I got there.
Nice. Let's talk about you as a director and the workflow. Every director, from a standpoint of blocking, from the standpoint of working with actors, production designer, costume designer, cinematographers, has a different aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
So taking on a series where all these characters have been established over the last, four season, God knows what, 20 plus, 30 plus episodes, and you come in and you have this big responsibility to be able to sort of deliver the messaging of this episode in the season. How do you work with actors that have sort of been working with other directors, whether it's in case of Bridgerton or anything else? Because, with a film or TV pilot that you are just working on as a director, it's a little bit different because you're starting off fresh, but now you're
Yeah.
taking on all this existing stuff. Where does your creativity, your own creativity come in? And then there's that boundary of making sure that it aligns with the show needs and the character needs.
Yeah. That's a great question. I mean, one of the things I feel about the Bridgerton cast is they're really excited to work with different directors because it really helps them um, work. It helps them stretch their skill set, taking notes from different people, learning to kind of disseminate what somebody's saying to you and execute that can be very exciting. So I think they enjoy having the different directors, the different energy come in, because the other thing is that if you have the same people all the time, all the way through, it can get a little stale or a little, rote. Whereas if you have new ideas coming in, it I think galvanizes and adds a new energy, a freshness. So what I like to do when I step into a place like that is I like to kind of meet the actors beforehand. So whether it's a Zoom call or in person, I like to just go and meet them so that they can see who I am and tell me, a little bit about themselves and also their character. If it's something like Bridgerton where it's very established, like what are things that wish that your character had been highlighted more? What are things that I can know when I'm shooting with you that can help with your character, or how you like to work? For example, like, when we're doing a scene, do you like to have notes right away? Do you need a couple of takes to get into your work, flow? What's your kind of process? I like to have those conversations with them offset beforehand so that we kind of can start creating a relationship together, but also I can go in a little bit more informed about how they like to work, so that when you get into the pressure cooker of like, you only have 30 minutes to get this and whatever, I kind of have an idea of how they like to work, and so can move in that way with them. Um, so that's usually kind of what I do in terms of prep for the actors. I also, obviously watch every episode and really try to get a feel for the show and how the show may have changed over the seasons and what they're doing more and what they're doing less. Um, and also, like, when you step into this show, you have an incredible, usually DP, which I had in Alicia. So she and I, went through the scripts and really talked about how we wanted to shoot the different scenes. And if I was ever thinking of something that might have been out of the ordinary for the Bridgerton look or feel, she could always kind of redirect me or give me another option. One of the things we did in my episodes that I don't think I've seen in Bridgerton before was like when Benedict, spoiler, proposes to Sophie at the ball. We kind of did this lighting shift and everybody kind of stopped moving. And that was because for me, it was really important to make a moment of the proposal. And the script kind of said, well, he proposes, he takes her off the floor and he proposes. But like, I kind of have felt like the entire season, we've been waiting for this, for the proposal, for the marriage, for this consummation publicly of their romance. And so, we talked a lot about how do we do that in the time that we have and the space that we have that makes sense in the storytelling. So it's a lot of it's really fortuitous when you step on a show like that to have a DP that's been there before, because they can really help you with pitfalls of where you've been and where you haven't, and where we can push the limits. And I feel like that's one of the moments where we might have done that.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that scene really stood out. Again, it's just these little things that, from a creative standpoint, that every individual, it's a collaboration, right? Whether it's a collaboration between the director and the cinematographer, sort of inserts, and it comes to life more than it was on life on paper.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you talked about Alicia, and the thing is, when you're on the set, the four departments that you are sort of leading the ship on are the camera department, the costume department, and the set department, right? And you kind of already spoke about the camera department, so working with costume and set as a captain of the ship, how are you sort of managing that, and also factoring in that you used to be an AD, because AD is sort of doing, so how do you find that gap between used to being an AD and then, trying not to overstep? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I think I probably overstep at times, and that's just like a default that happens when you're stressed or in the moment, and you used to do something and I did it well, and so you fall back into those roles sometimes. But I really try to endeavor to let the ADing stuff happen with the AD. But I do feel like it helps me with questions and with in the prep moments, because the ADs are responsible for the schedule. So like really being able to articulate, I'm going to need longer for this scene than you have on paper. Maybe we can move this stuff around. And, having that brain for that is helpful as a director. But the other two departments, so the thing that's kind of interesting about this is so the 2 episodes that I shot were set in locations that are already fixed, right? Except for when we went to Cressida's house. Cressida is in a new home. And so, but I don't know how to say this or how to essentially when Bridgerton starts prep, they need to have all the episodes kind of fleshed out so that the production design and costume design know the arc of the season so they can start prepping, because those things, it's not like being on NCIS Origins where you're like, let's go to Target and just grab a couple t-shirts. They have to build. And if you've like, as a director going there, one of the cool things that you get to do is walk through, I should send you this, but you get to walk through like the costume department warehouse, which is like not a warehouse. It's 2 huge warehouses with different levels. And on level 2 is the Queen's realm. And that is the person that paints on the Queen stuff and the person that is building the little diamonds that, there's just so much work that goes into it. The costume designer, John, has to he needs a big runway. So when I'm starting, they've already kind of started conceptualizing. And so you as a director have input in kind of where the ball's going, but it's already kind of going, right? Like if you step on and like this is going to be this ball is this themed, they're kind of already going that way. So you get to have a conversation about it, but you're not necessarily like conceptualizing what the ball is, if that makes sense.
It does.
What I find that's really cool about the costume department on this show is that they spend, incredible amounts of time building these beautiful costumes. And then every season, those costumes get repurposed. So even though you might not see them on the main characters again, they get rebuilt and repurposed and put on the background so that everything's reused and reused and reused because of budget, but also because, those things are incredible, and like, why not recreate them or repurpose them into something that will augment the beauty of the background of a scene.
Sure. No, that's smart.
Stuff you get to like be a part of. Trying to think of like one of the things that was different for me that they hadn't really done on Bridgerton before was a funeral. So what does that look like? So understanding what a funeral looks like, or a funeral wake looks like at that time. So having a concept of that and then trying to build on that in a artistic way. So like, the shears over pictures and like, featuring that kind of look. Like Amy, who directed episode 6, kind of ends on the portrait of Hannah and her husband, John, of Francesca and John. And then when I have it, it's covered with like, a dark kind of see-through piece of material to kind of show the funeral feel, but also, show the passage of time and so on. So that kind of stuff I get to have a conversation about, like how opaque do I want that material, that kind of thing. And you definitely get to say like, I'd like this kind of tea set or this kind of food, on the tables. But in general, because, how they've kind of created from season 1, those things stay fairly fixed.
Fair enough. Got it. Awesome. Thank you so much. I want to talk about if this whole show is about class system, if you want to call it, right?
Mm,
Like the upper class, the lower class, being ostracized, middle class, all that stuff. I was watching that episode and I was thinking, thank God we don't live in that world. But then it kind of hit me. We kind of still do, in a very
yeah.
we kind of in a very sophisticated way. Uh, at least in the West, it's a little bit more sophisticated. In other parts of the world, it's not. How in your experience in life, have you witnessed something like that, and that kind of, in a conscious or unconscious way, got applied into your work on Bridgerton, where, whether it's a friend or somebody you knew who were about to get together, but then there was some sort of a difference, whether it was because of financials, whether it was
Oh, yeah, it's so interesting about the Bridgerton versus like living in America is that, that feeling of American dream where you can transcend class based on an idea or, some financial gain some way, or you can kind of move through the classes.
sure,
That is so not that's so fixed in the European, especially the English kind of world. um, I've never experienced anything. I'm actually from Canada. I grew up in Vancouver.
oh, did you?
Yeah, I'm Canadian by birth. And so, we're very connected to the English way of life, but I think we still subscribe to this, American ideal where you can supersede a class. So I've never experienced anything like that. One of the things I really love about this season that people don't realize is like, and I was like feeling this way too when I was first reading the scripts, was like, come on, Benedict, you can't tell it's Sophie, like, come on, there was a mask, you can't tell. But the whole idea of that upstairs downstairs, and how the downstairs would never, like, that would never be a possibility, so I would never look at somebody that way, because that's not even gonna happen. I feel like that is so fixed in, or was so fixed in the English society. I don't think I've ever kind of seen that happen here. I
I think you're right, because if you look at uh, the countries that were ruled by the British, right? Like if you go to India, if you go to Pakistan, if you go to all these
mm,
different countries, that element is still there.
mm,
Still there. I was in London last year, and I was meeting a potential investor for one of my next projects, and he said, come to this club, and he never told me what the dress code was.
oh, yeah, 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 yeah,
So I
yeah.
go in, I go in with my jeans, and the guy,
Oh no.
the doorman is like, "You can't come in." I'm like, "What do you mean I can't come in? You're not dressed appropriately."
Yeah.
But then I was able to kind of come in and just at the main foyer and kind of chat. But that aspect, those exclusive clubs, they have those kind of rules, because you just have to. I don't know if it's a financial class, but it's just you have to look at least at the same level as everybody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. I think like it's so interesting because I feel like in America now and Canada a little bit, we're trying to get back to, there's this like um exclusivity, like,
Club.
yeah, feeling where people are like the Soho House and this club and that club, and people are trying to define themselves by what group they're a part of, which may be just a human thing, but it's really distilled in the English kind of culture. And there are clubs there that neither of us will ever be able to touch, no matter how wealthy we get, because of our pedigree. It's very different. It's very different. Yeah.
You
I
talked
would
about.
say
Sorry, go.
actually in the States, the difference is racism. Like, I mean, and I'm sure Pakistan and India, there's that there too.
Oh,
But the whole,
100%.
the whole idea of like black-white relationships, I feel like I've encountered that more, which isn't upstairs, downstairs. It's more kind of racial divide, but that also I think is present in the English lifestyle. And Shondaland is just so great at doing this colorblind casting where it just allows everyone to see themselves in this space. Um,
Yeah.
we haven't been able to before.
But I believe that, and I don't know if you've experienced this or not, this the whole race thing, right? Like, or whatever, religion, race, whatever you want to call it, all these difference of opinions, difference of looks and views, they
Yeah.
kind of fade away when if there's a black person who's a millionaire, a brown person who's a millionaire, and a white person who's a millionaire, they will be friends.
Yeah.
That goes away out the window. But as soon as that money part kind of comes down, then sometimes it looks like that, and sometimes it is that.
Yeah. 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 It's
Just,
true.
just an observation.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, I want to talk about your the big crowd scenes, right? So
Oh,
you have those are tough to do as a director.
yeah.
And obviously there are other your entire team is sort of responsible with the background actors and the second unit or the assistant director, second assistant director and all that. But as a scene is playing out in front of the camera and your focus is obviously the main characters, has there been any time where you were trying to think in your head, holy crap, this take is going great. I hope everything else is going okay. And if something didn't go okay, what was the sort of story behind that, if that ever happened?
That's funny. So the background actor kind of placement and movement is is an AD responsibility. So it's
Okay.
something I'm incredibly attuned to in any scene. So it doesn't matter. I can watch the action of the actors, but I'm also very aware of the action of the background. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm sure the AD department was highly annoyed with me. We were shooting when they were outside of the market, like just when Lady Danbury and Lady Bridgerton are walking, there was background action, and I was very specific that day. And I think it's something that like I am just so passionate about and want to make right. Um, so in days like that where you're like we were on the back lot and they were background, that's a big kind of collaboration with your assistant director, that team, them setting it up, them you telling them what you want, and then watching. I'm not gonna lie, there are times when I will reset even if it was a good take for the background because everything makes it a good scene, not just the background.
Yeah.
Um, I think that they did an incredible job with that, and also at the ball, like the Queen's Ball, that was a lot of that required kind of like an overhead plan for us because it was like Araminta enters here, Sophie enters here. There was like a lot of stuff happening in that room, and connecting the flow of everything was really important. So it was really important for the ADs to make sure that when we're on Posey and she's talking to her love interest, that there's a that if that cross is happening there, it's happening in the other direction too. It's like keeping that kind of in mind. When we did the wake for John, where it was really all actors, that becomes more my responsibility. Like as a director, your responsibility is the actors. So if you have 15 actors in the scene, you're placing them and setting them versus at the ball where the AD department can set the background and the movement and the flow there. So, and I love doing both versions of that.
No, that's good. At least you're honest. That's really good. I think it's a testament. I think every director is like that because
Yeah.
directors more or less are, for the lack of a better word, a little bit more controlling.
Yeah.
Because you want certain things certain way, and because you've been an AD, it's sort of more in you than
Yeah.
maybe just directors.
Yeah.
You talked about actors and the positioning. Let's talk about blocking for a minute.
Sure.
What's your blocking process, and what was the most challenging scene on any of those two episodes that you found really, it was challenging to block, and if there's a story behind it that you can share?
I mean, what comes to mind is the wake at the Bridgerton house. That took us 2 days to shoot. And the reason it was challenging is because there was a flow that needed to happen. So, like, we've got folks at the front door greeting people, and then mom coming to talk to Francesca, and then mom talking to her love interest, and then Francesca bringing cookies to her family, and then Francesca seeing, feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and Sophie it was all of these things happening, right? And then where are all of those things in relation to each other? So, like, can Lady Danbury enter the party and then we come back and find her, and it makes sense to see her seeing Benedict over here? So, really, like, how do you block that and then shoot it so people understand kind of spatially where you are? I think that was the most challenging. And again, that's another one where the ADs were really working overtime because we had a lot of background in there. And so we're resetting this moment, or we're looking at it from a different angle, but we need this wipe to take us there. So I think that was probably the most challenging. I mean, this is very small, but I can bring it, like, it was fun.
Sure.
When Francesca brings the cookies over to her, her siblings, um,
When she forces them to eat, I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah,
Like, you
I
should
was
have it.
just
You should
trying
have.
to think of when she brings them over, they're all tasting the cookies, but one of the cookies was gluten free that had to go to Hyacinth, and so it was very, like, when they're taking it, everybody had to be very aware of what cookie they were taking because she has a gluten allergy and can't eat the regular cookies. So, how they were placed on the platter and then seeing them pull them. And then when I was in the edit, because it couldn't be on the platter. So she had to get something from props, like they had to give her a cookie. So, it was funny because in the edit, there were times where I was like, oh, she doesn't have a cookie in her hand. Oh, she got the cookie. We have to, like, kind of cut around that to make it make
Yeah.
sense. Um, but that was really funny. That was a kind of fun thing. Trying to think of, like, what else. I will say the cast, when we shot the Kilmartin wake where everyone was dancing, by the end of it, the cast was like, okay, Anya, we're done with dancing. Like, you made us twirl enough. We're good. Like, there was a lot of okay, one more time. But I was so happy to shoot that because for me it was like a moment where, I mean, for Bridgerton fans who watch the show, all of the balls are very, Jack, the choreographer, is amazing, but they're very practiced and staid and upright, and you know, um, they're not full of wild abandon, which is kind of what I wanted the wake to feel like, that the Bridgertons were kind of letting loose a little bit, which you don't usually see. So thus the many takes.
You talked about Francesca, and I was not going to come to that. Her whole arc in that episode of, losing somebody, and then she's trying to deal with it by handing cookies, and she's not
Yeah,
crying, and then eventually she breaks down, right? Later in the
yeah.
episode. What was your talk with the character? Sorry, the character. I'm saying the actress on that. And I'm sorry, I'm really terrible with name. What's the
Hannah.
actress? Anna.
Yeah.
Hannah. Hannah. What was your conversation with her like on her entire, sort of journey in that episode of how to execute? What were you giving her any notes or any inputs or?
I mean, this is the time when I say again, like, these actors at times know the character way better than I could
Than you
ever,
do.
stepping into it. Obviously watching the show, but she's lived in this character and in that relationship with John for a while. She and I really talked about, and Jess, the showrunner, about, like, Francesca is a reserved, kind of nervous young girl. If you watch the whole season, there's a whole bit about her wanting to reach her pinnacle and not knowing how to talk to people about that, and the discomfort she feels. I think a lot of people kind of relate to her because she's just a reserved, quiet young woman who does not exude a lot of emotion. And that's also why I think she's connected with John. They're very similar. So, and the other thing that I was reminded of, and we talked about was that she's quite young, like back in the day, these guys got married very young. So she's just trying to keep up the appearances. How am I supposed to be here? And never having gone through anything that tragic, except for losing her father, but she was much younger. So we really talked about how she was controlling herself at the funeral. She's very stoic. It's just like she's just going to do her job. And it's not until her mom kind of pushes her in a way that kind of breaks the dam for her. And I think a lot of people, when watching that, you hear her say, you had 8 chances, you have eight, you had 8 reasons, you had 8 children and I have nothing. Like, she doesn't have a child, she has nothing to carry on John's love. And that the weight of that coming crashing out of her, it was fun to talk to her about building that up so that she could let it go. And I think Hannah did an incredible job at that. Like, it just was so heartbreaking.
Yeah, she did. She was remarkable.
Yeah.
As we sort of wrap up, I want to ask you about your own sort of, if you want to call them, fears of being a director and being on the set, especially like Bridgerton, like, a massive set, like all this responsibilities on your shoulder.
Yeah.
No matter how much you prepare, how much you tell yourself it's going to be cool, it's going to be all right. There's always those moments when the fear kind of creeps in, either temporarily or throughout your, whatever 3, 4 months that you're there, 5 months. Was there, if you can talk to me about a moment like that, I'm sure there've been many where you may have been afraid or self-doubt kind of came in.
Mm, yeah, let's see. This silence is not me saying I never have fear, because for sure, I mean, stepping into any show as a newcomer, joining a family, it's really trepidatious. You want to be able to smoothly kind of um, assimilate into the workflow, into the family, so that you can talk about your vision and have people get on board with it. I mean, honestly, it's the first couple of days, first day, the first day I shot, I had to shoot a montage piece of Sophie packing up her luggage and getting ready to leave, at the end of
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
seven,
yeah.
and leaving the glove, and I hadn't been there very long, and it was my first episode, first thing to shoot, and we shot way too long. So like that's a fear directors have, is like, you want to be able to execute what you're doing in a appropriate amount of time. So a scene like that is maybe half a page and has like a couple of things, you want to get out of there and do a good job. And your first day, you want to do a good job. You want to get in, get out, have people happy, have the actors happy that you haven't done like 107 takes. You confidently got what you needed. I think that scene took us almost 7 hours, and it was like probably um,
It was very quick. It was a very quick montage, like
it was like,
40
I mean, on
seconds
the
or
page
something.
it was like 4/8 of a page, or it was a
Yeah.
very short amount of work. And some people will say, Rome Burns is a short amount of work. I mean, it's small on the page, but big in manufacturing. This could have been less time. So I definitely, when I shot that, I was like, oh gosh, are they going to think that I don't know what I'm doing, or I take too long shooting? So that was definitely like, I did have some trepidation going into the next day that I was shooting. Um, and one of the ways around that was I literally went to the show, the producing director there, Tom Verica, who's amazing, and I said to him, like, I'm aware, that won't happen again. Like, I think because I got kind of, the thing that can happen when you don't feel a time pressure is that you get excited about the craft you're doing and how you're going to shoot things, and
Oh
um,
yeah.
that takes up time. So that's why it's very important as a director to be prepared and to have talked about these things beforehand. So when you get on set, you can execute what your vision is. And if new ideas come up, that's great. You can incorporate it, but you also, have a drive. So I guess that would be a moment that I was like, oh,
Very nice. If there was one thing that you learned about yourself while working on Bridgerton, not necessarily your craft, it can be, but anything in particular, anything else it could be, what would that be?
I mean, yeah, that's a hard one. I mean, it reinforced for me how much I love the job. That's not a learning thing, but it reinforced for me like how much I love directing and how much I feel like I'm in the right place doing it. It's not really something that like a learning thing. Um,
Well, that's fine. That's fair enough. I mean, I can relate to that. It's just that you kind of feel like you've been reborn.
yeah, I just like sitting there, every day going to work was such a joy. I really loved the cast. The crew was magnificent. The camera operators, Alicia, like everybody was just so wonderful to work with and collaborate with. Like it was such a great environment. Um, it reminded me like this can be really fun because sometimes it's not, it's stressful
Oh
or
yeah,
you have
yeah.
personality clashes or whatever. Yeah.
That I'm sure you had tons of those. What's next for you? Are you working on anything that you're able to talk about, or you're waiting for work?
No, I am working right now in New York. I'm on the Gilded Age. So
Okay.
it's kind of a fun thing to be in, a little bit like we were talking about. The Gilded Age, created by Julian Fellows, very English kind of origins, but it's about, the American Renaissance, the Gilded Age of that, of our time.
Mm,
And one of the cool things about it is that this is kind of the storytelling talks about how you can make yourself you can build yourself into the upper class, which is um I think distinctly an American kind of thing. And
right.
so it's really fun to be a part of that. So I'm doing season 4 of this show, and it's fun to be working kind of in the same time, uh you know but on a different continent.
When you say it's kind of fun working on the same time period, is it, are you attracted to that time period aside from, it's a novelty, but sort of being out of the current time that we're in, where everything is like rush, 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 and in that time period, it's like more like, okay, let's just take a breath, take a breather, slowly, everything moves slowly.
I mean, I love the pomp and circumstance of, the 1800s. Gilded, Bridgerton's a little bit earlier, but like that, the time when men and women dancing was normal. It's fine. Everybody can dance. There's no stigma about it. The quest for knowledge in a kind of different way is so interesting and singular here versus like there's just so much in present day. But I don't think I would say I'm like someone who wants to be in that time frame all the time. There's interesting storytelling there. I'm a huge sci-fi fan, you
Oh,
know.
are you?
Yeah, like I was just like I've been like geeking out over Nathan Fillion posting all these things about Firefly returning, which is one of my favorite episode or shows, and I directed some of The Expanse, which was like by far my favorite sci-fi show of all time. What I like about that show and I like about these shows is that the storytelling and the not the lessons, but the the human experience can be displayed in a way that people sometimes can absorb easily,
Hmm.
and take to heart in a different way and allow them to then maybe because I do feel like what we do as storytellers is a little bit of helping people understand themselves and humanity and see people for, who they are. And so when you can do that in wrapped in fairy tale like Bridgerton, or in, the Gilded Age, like the Gilded Age, I think people accept that a little bit easier than they do in something that's more present day, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, it does. It
You know?
does. It's I mean, you look at movies like Dune,
Yes, yes,
Avatar,
yeah.
it plays right in front of us right now in the world. And yeah, no, I completely get that. So with that, going to sort of I'm going to ask you some really quick questions. This is the first time I'm doing this. I've never done this before. Wanted to
Okay,
try something different. Nothing to do with work. Just
okay,
very
okay,
quick questions.
okay.
What do you think? To you, what is purpose of life?
Oh gosh.
If there was few words to describe it.
Uh, what comes to mind is connection.
Great. What's your dream project? Like, what would you want to make one day? It could be a
Um,
genre, it could be your own film, TV show.
a TV show. It would be the best, like a great comedy that people just love. Like it's like not, it's like a Friends, or for me, the IT Crowd. It's like a warm hug that you can go back to again and again and really enjoy.
Got it.
Yeah.
Is there a specific person, doesn't have to be a celebrity, in your industry that you want to meet, that you look up to?
Oh my gosh, that's a hard one. There's so many names.
Let's come back. What's your favorite food?
Anything Asian.
Anything Asian.
And
Fair
when I
enough.
say Asian, like Thai, Japanese, Chinese, anything from those three.
I'm with you there. Uh, if there's a place in the world that you want to travel to the most, what would that be?
Galapagos Islands.
Nice. What makes you happy?
Oh, being around my friends and laughing, like just being with my fam, whether that's family or friends, family, like just being with my people.
Got it. There was the most recent Harrison Ford speech that he did. I think it was a lifetime achievement. It was like last week, and he talked about and it hit me really hard too that you know I'm a totally different person, and I'm paraphrasing here. I'm a totally different person with my own people, meaning the industry.
Mm.
And that is such a bang on thing. Anytime I go to LA, I feel like I'm home.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like it's just such a bizarre feeling. I go very often. I come back. I'm like, oh my God, I'm leaving home, even though I'm going to home. Right?
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. You
It's
gotta
just
move.
being in the. I would never live in LA, knock on wood. But I'm just saying because of the everybody's there as I sort of speak your own language, for the lack of a better word.
Yeah, that is true. That's true.
What makes you sad?
Polarization, which is kind of where we are in the world today. This like inability to understand each other, and like which makes people make such definitive, like close off decisions about people, which I think often then we don't understand each other, and then violence is easier towards each other. Yeah, yeah.
And what makes you afraid? It could be a bug, it could be an animal, or it could be just something like polarization.
Yeah, I mean, what makes me afraid right now is, and I'm a victim to it as well, is our like, um, it's weird because we have heightened sense, but I also feel like we're kind of dulled in our sentence. Like we're mesmerized by Instagram, television, all these other things, and disparate. And that makes me worried because I feel like we need to galvanize to be able to change our world's paradigm, and we just are more and more fractured. So I think the fracturing of society. How about that?
Fair enough. Uh, Going back to the lab for other question, who do you want to meet?
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. Oh, my
Or
mind.
maybe I can. Who do you want to direct? If
Oh,
that helps. Maybe I've made that question much harder.
yeah, you kind of have. Who do I want to meet? Like, oh God, I'm like honestly, I'm blanking because there's.
Any
mm,
name that comes to my mind. It doesn't have to be the one exactly that you want to meet, but somebody you look up to, like Morgan Freeman. I don't know, Al Pacino, uh, Steven
those are
Spielberg.
all so easy.
I
Um,
know, I know.
okay, hold on. You know who I'd like to meet? I'd like to meet Cher. I'd like to meet Cher because I feel like her life trajectory has been so fascinating and who she was and who she is now. Um, I would like to meet her. Yeah, she's kind of
Lovely.
that's kind of like it's funny. I don't know. She popped into mind. So how about that?
No, 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 that's good. That's good. I just want to sort of end this now. One of the things you talked about, you said, our work sort of help people empathize, create empathy, not empathize,
Yeah,
empathy. And that is so true because in this day and age, we need that more than ever before, the
yeah,
empathy. And I think, and to your comment about polarization, I think the world is polarized, but I always find if I detach myself from watching social media feeds and try to interact in the real world more, the world seems okay.
yeah.
So, right? So it's not as bad, but yeah, I can totally see when when we're on swiping, it's like the world is coming to an end. So, but
Yeah,
the
I
real
do.
world is a beautiful place.
It really is, and it's actually one of the reasons why I'm really happy to be in New York, and I think Toronto has this too. Is like public transportation, so you're always out and around people, and also
Yeah.
seeing live entertainment, like any live. I've been seeing a lot of shows on Broadway, and the experience of a live performance with an audience, that's something that can't be replicated, and is so exciting, and also it makes me feel very warm towards humanity when I get to do that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Anya, for your
Yeah,
time. I truly, truly appreciate it. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
nice to
I
meet you.
hope I hope you enjoyed the conversation too.
It was great. It was great. Thank you.